Yeah, it's something on the floor, but yeah, I know you see something down. I'll have to turn the music down. Yeah. Can you turn the music down? Yeah, still wait, so. I want to turn it for a moment. Okay. Let's put some handcuffs on.
On the afternoon of May 2nd, 2023, the call came into Cleveland Dispatch. Unlike most, this one carried no emergency tone, no hysteria, just concern. A woman, stopping at a corner store, had encountered a frantic stranger claiming something was terribly wrong. "There's a lady tied up in a basement somewhere," the woman told the operator. "She was hysterical. I don't even know her, but I believed her. I just can't sleep if I don't say something." The dispatcher didn't hesitate. Minutes later, a cruiser was rerouted to an aging white house on East 78th Street. The neighborhood had seen better decades: peeling paint, sagging porches, overgrown lots. But the odd part wasn't the decay, it was the music. Thick, pulsing bass lines throbbed from within the house, like a party with no guests. The responding officers knocked hard. No answer. Then again, still nothing, until the door creaked and a man stepped out. He looked in his early 30s, tall, jittery, a navy blue hoodie half-zipped over a tank top, gold chain bouncing with each twitch. Sweat clung to his temples, despite the cool breeze. "You can't be here, man. Y'all making my spot hot." The lead officer gave a neutral nod. "Sir, we just got a call. Someone reported a woman may be injured in your basement." The man scoffed, shaking his head. "Man, ain't nobody in no basement. That's crackhead talk." "You live here?" the officer asked. "I do." "But y'all making things complicated. I work for y'all." He said it so casually, it made the cops pause. "What do you mean, work for us?" "I'm a CI, confidential informant. Been helping y'all out. Ask Smith, Detective Smith, 2nd District." The officer's partner raised an eyebrow. "Got any ID?" The man froze for a beat too long. "Can't give you my name. You know how this works." No one moved. The music inside kept pounding. "Mind if we look in the basement just to rule it out?" "No, absolutely not," the man snapped, voice rising. "You got a warrant?" "Nah, thought not." The standoff had begun. The man introduced himself, after some pressure, as Dante Edmund Geiger. But he didn't stop pushing the narrative that he was protected. "Call Smith, he'll tell you," Dante said. "I'm working a case right now, big stuff, guns, dealers. You blow my cover, I'm dead." "Why would someone say there's a woman in your basement?" the cop asked again. Dante threw his hands up. "Because they want more dope. That's how crackheads work. You believe a junkie over me?" But the more he talked, the more he twisted. He wouldn't explain who the woman was. He couldn't account for where she went. He said he didn't know her name, then referred to her as Cece under his breath. They didn't have probable cause. Yet. So the officers backed off. Temporarily. That night, around 11:50 p.m., another call came in. This time from a woman who claimed Dante had shown her photos of a woman tied to a chair. "He said she snitched," the caller whispered. "He said she was going to end up dead. Like, same way as the last one." The dispatcher froze. "Last one?" Patrols returned to the house, this time with backup. But again, Dante played nice. Sweeter now. "Sorry for earlier," he said. "Cops make me nervous, man. Y'all got any warrants this time?" "No," the sergeant said flatly, "but you're gonna let us in." Dante smiled. "Come through the back." Inside, the house was eerily quiet until Dante cranked up the music again. "Turn it down," the sergeant ordered. Dante obeyed, slowly. "Y'all ain't gonna find nothing." They checked the basement. Nothing. The rooms. Nothing. Smells like cat pee, one officer muttered. Yeah, got a lot of cats, Dante shrugged. It should have ended there, but just as the team moved to leave, a younger officer hung back, his instincts tingling. From the front porch, he heard a faint sound. Something muffled, like a scream choked into fabric. He motioned to the others, "Wait." They moved fast, tore open a locked bin behind a false panel near the porch. And there she was.
Curled, emaciated, trembling, Cheryl Cyrus. Eyes glassy, barely breathing, lips cracked. Her spine twisted in unnatural angles. A single whispered word escaped her mouth. "I'm paralyzed." The sergeant called for EMS immediately, but no one could forget what she said next. He was going to kill me tomorrow." The sergeant stayed behind while two officers moved around back. A breeze rustled the dying leaves, and for a second, everything was too quiet, until a soft thud echoed from inside the house. "Did you hear that?" one officer whispered. "Yeah, that came from inside. Second floor, maybe." They exchanged glances. Then came music again, louder than before. Dante had turned it up again. A familiar trick. Distract. Muffle. One of the officers tapped his Bodycam. This guy's covering something. They waited for backup before entering. When Dante opened the door, his face was soaked in sweat. He tried to play calm, offered them water, smiled with too many teeth. But this time, the sergeant didn't wait. "Where's your phone, Dante?" "What?" "Your phone. You showed someone pictures, a woman zip-tied to a chair. We need that phone." He laughed. "Man, people say all kinds of things. That chick, she lying. She mad I wouldn't front her dope." "Then you won't mind showing us your phone." He hesitated, just long enough. Another officer slipped into the hallway and noticed a charging cable leading under a couch. He yanked it. A cheap burner phone fell to the floor. They opened it. The first photo showed a woman's arms, bruised, zip-tied behind her back. Her face was partially visible, eyes swollen shut. The next was worse. "Jesus," the sergeant muttered. "He did it." Dante grabbed the phone, but an officer shoved him back. "You're done lying." "I told you, I'm helping the feds. You're screwing everything up." "No," the sergeant said. "You are." They demanded to see the basement again. Dante refused, then relented. "Fine, but y'all gonna feel real dumb." The smell hit them first. Cat urine? Mold? Blood? One officer scanned the walls. Something felt off. A mismatched panel. A hairline crack in the corner. He pressed it. A narrow hidden door creaked open. Inside, stained blankets, duct tape, and a pink hoodie soaked in something brownish red. A styrofoam cup sat on a milk crate. Next to it, a used needle. "She was here," one of the officers said quietly. "And recently." Dante shook his head. "That ain't nothing. That's where my cousin crashed." "Your cousin wear pink hoodies and sleeps with zip ties?" Then came the real sound. A groan. Barely audible over the fading music, but there. They froze. "Did you hear that?" The officers spread out. One checked the porch. A large plastic storage tote sat under a sheet, sealed. The officer knocked on it lightly. The tote moved. He ripped it open. Inside was Cheryl, bruised, shaking, paralyzed from the waist down, but alive. Her mouth was bound. Her eyes darted wildly. "EMS, now!" As they worked to stabilize her, Cheryl whispered, He said I was a snitch. Said I'd get him killed." She gasped. "Please, don't let him hurt me again." Dante was still ranting inside the house when the sergeant stepped back in. "You're under arrest," he said. For what? For what's in that box, Dante? He didn't resist this time. He just whispered. She should have kept her mouth shut.
Dante sat handcuffed in the back of the cruiser, head tilted, muttering to himself. His swagger was gone, his smirk replaced by a twitch. At the hospital, Cheryl slipped in and out of consciousness. Doctors stabilized her, but the damage was massive. Fractured ribs, collapsed lung, spinal trauma. One nurse whispered, "It's a miracle she's alive." Meanwhile, back at the station, detectives reviewed footage and built their timeline. They called in Detective Larry Smith, the man Dante claimed to be working for. Smith arrived confused, annoyed, and furious. "I don't know this man," he said. "We've never used him. He's not in our CI database. He's delusional." But when they dug deeper, a disturbing detail emerged. Dante had been stopped by Smith's vice unit a week earlier. Cheryl had been in the car with him. They were both let go. "Why didn't you arrest him then?" one detective asked. Smith frowned. "Honestly, we were short on paperwork, and she seemed more messed up than he did." So Dante wasn't lying. Not completely. He wasn't a real CI, but maybe he thought he was? Or maybe he'd manipulated the stop to his advantage. That raised a deeper question. Had Cheryl been marked from that moment? Inside Dante's house, a second phone was found hidden in a shoebox. On it, a video. Dante pacing in front of a camera. "I know what's coming," he said into the lens. "They're going to try and flip it. Make it seem like I'm crazy." He leaned in. "But she knows what she did. She told them. She sold me out. I took care of her, man. I fed her. I gave her a place. I gave her purpose. And she gave me to the wolves." He pulled out a folded paper. She wrote it herself. He held it up. In shaky handwriting, "I am a snitch. I am a rat. I deserve this." The room fell silent when the video ended. This is more than assault. This is torture.
What the cops couldn't understand was how Cheryl had gone unnoticed for so long. She had been seen in public only once by a stranger at a gas station who described her as panicked, dirty, limping. That sighting led to the first 911 call, but no one followed up that night. It wasn't until the second call, the one involving the photos, that things turned. If we hadn't come back, the sergeant whispered, she'd be dead. When questioned at the station, Dante maintained his warped narrative. "She betrayed me," he said. "I didn't want to kill her, just remind her who I was, who we were." He then asked for a lawyer. The next morning, officers returned to Dante's house with a full forensic team. What they found shifted the tone of the entire investigation. In a back storage closet on the second floor, a false wall had been poorly plastered over. A cadaver dog sat and barked. When they broke through it, the space inside was cramped, no larger than a walk-in closet, but enough for someone to stand upright. Inside, they found duct tape, bloody cloths, a shattered cell phone, and what looked like old, dried vomit. "She was in here," the tech muttered. "He kept her in here." There were scratch marks on the wall, deep ones, like fingernails dragged in desperation. Dante claimed Cheryl had only been at the house for 2 days, but the state of the wounds, the infection setting in, and forensic evidence, such as rotted food and blood layered across multiple surfaces, told a different story. This wasn't a 48-hour nightmare. It was at least 5 to 7 days of horror. Worse, the timestamps from the video Dante had recorded, they didn't match his timeline. One had been filmed 4 days before police ever arrived. He planned this, a detective concluded. It wasn't rage, it was punishment. Cheryl regained full consciousness after several days in the ICU.
Her breathing was still assisted, and her body was swollen and broken, but her mind was sharp. She told detectives everything. "I was walking to his place. I needed a place to crash," she said. "He seemed off, paranoid, but I didn't think anything of it until he locked the door from the outside." Her voice broke when she recalled the first blow. "He hit me with a broom handle. Then he said I was a rat, that the cops let me go too easy last time. He said he knew what I was." She described being zip-tied, forced into a plastic tote, then moved from room to room. How he poured cold water on her when she cried. How he turned the music up to drown out her screams. And then the most chilling part. He made me write it. That paper they found, "I am a snitch, I am a rat." He made me write it over and over, said it would be the last thing people ever read from me. What Cheryl didn't know was that Dante had briefly left her unattended on the second day, his only mistake. She managed to chew through part of the duct tape, drag herself across the floor, and scream for help out a back window. That's when the neighbor at the gas station saw her, the first 911 caller. Dante returned minutes later and beat her for screaming. The detectives were now convinced Dante wasn't just dangerous, he was delusional. But they still had to determine one last piece of the puzzle. Was his story about working with the police remotely true? They pulled phone records, internal logs, and contacted every officer in the 2nd District. There was no Detective Smith assigned to any CI program. There were no active deals, no cooperation orders, no internal paperwork, nothing to suggest Dante was a confidential informant. The number he gave for Detective Smith? A burner phone, registered under a fake name. The Smith on the other end was either a friend or an invention. It unraveled everything. The only thing real was the violence. But then came another gut punch. Police reviewed Bodycam footage from their first visit to the house, the one where they knocked, spoke to Dante, and walked away. In the background, a faint sound, muffled, repeating. They enhanced the audio. A scream from behind the wall. "Help me!" It had been there all along. They'd stood feet away. One officer broke down after watching the clip. He whispered, "I could have ended it right there. We could have saved her days of that." The trial moved quickly. The prosecutors had overwhelming evidence. The confession, the video, Cheryl's testimony, the physical injuries, and the blood trail that led through every room in the house. But it was the video Dante filmed himself of Cheryl tied up, begging, reciting the words he forced her to write that sealed his fate. The judge paused the court for 10 minutes after that footage. "I've presided over murder cases, mutilation, even serial crimes, but this was a man who believed he had authority to own another human. Sentence, 20 years to life. No parole for 15. Dante didn't flinch. In fact, he smirked. On his way out of the courtroom, he turned to the camera and said, "You'll see me again." Months passed. Cheryl Cyrus, who once lay folded inside a storage bin, paralyzed and whispering, was now in a long-term care facility. She couldn't walk. She needed assistance to eat, to bathe, to even scratch her own nose. But her mind? Sharper than ever. One nurse reported hearing her mutter in her sleep over and over, "I am not a snitch. I am not a rat. I am a human being." When she was finally strong enough to speak at length, Cheryl dropped a detail that chilled the detectives to their bones. She said this wasn't the first time, not just with Dante. Years ago, she'd been held before. Same neighborhood, different man. She escaped. Barely. But no one believed her. She didn't press charges. She numbed it with drugs. "It's like certain houses just eat people," she whispered. With Cheryl's memory now returning, she led detectives back to specific corners of the basement. Underneath the floor tiles, they found old hair strands, a woman's earring, and a plastic ID badge half shredded. None of them belonged to Cheryl. Forensics linked the items to a missing woman reported in 2021. Case gone cold. Her name? Maya Levins. Last seen near that very street. Her body was never found. Dante refused to answer questions about Maya, but he laughed when the name was mentioned. In prison, Dante made calls constantly, some to his mother, some to unknown friends. But one recorded call caught investigators off guard. He said, "They think I'm done, but I've got notebooks, names, dates, everyone who ever crossed me. And if I don't get out, someone's going to get that list. I may be locked up, but I ain't powerless." That recording triggered a new investigation, not just into what Dante had done, but who might have helped him. There were whispers that he wasn't acting alone. During a final sweep of Dante's house, officers used luminol to search for hidden bloodstains in the walls. One patch near the baseboard lit up. When scraped, it revealed something stranger than blood. Carved underneath peeling wallpaper was a name: Dee Dee. No one, friends, neighbors, even Cheryl, knew a Dee Dee. But when detectives cross-referenced local missing persons, one stood out. Deidre Thomas, 23 years old, reported missing 7 years ago. She had last been seen entering a red sedan. Make and model matched Dante's former vehicle. Her case was forgotten, buried under other statistics, until now. While examining items from Dante's seized belongings, one officer noticed something stiff stitched into the underside of his old mattress. They slid it open, and out fell a folded, yellowing map. Not of roads, but of alleys. Each alley in the area marked with red dots, some crossed out, some circled, some labeled with initials. One dot matched the alley where Cheryl said she was first abducted. Another matched a known drug drop site. A third was where a local teen girl had vanished 2 years prior. No body, no suspect. The pattern was too precise to ignore. Months after Dante's sentencing, an elderly woman in the same neighborhood reported someone knocking at her back door. It was just before midnight. She said a young girl stood there barefoot, wrapped in a sheet, bruised and crying. But by the time police arrived, she was gone. All that remained was a piece of paper clutched in the old woman's hand. On it were 3 words written in frantic pencil: "Tell Cheryl I'm sorry." No fingerprints, no witnesses, no video. Just another shadow that slipped through the cracks. Cheryl Cyrus survived, but barely. After 3 surgeries, weeks on a ventilator, and constant dialysis, she regained some movement in her right arm, enough to write. When detectives visited her for a final interview, she didn't want to talk. She handed them a page instead. He said this would never end. There are more, in other cities, in other homes. I wasn't the first, and I might not be the last. Then she added one more line at the bottom. Find the girl who screamed in the alley. Detectives revisited old audio logs. One 911 call from 2 years ago reported screams behind a furniture store. No body was ever found. But the store shared a back wall with Dante's cousin's old apartment. The cousin had died in 2021. No one checked the crawl space back then. In prison, Dante Edmund Geiger maintained his delusion of control. During a recorded call to his public defender, he laid out a proposal. I'll give them names, real ones, dealers, Dirty cops. Other informants. But they gotta move me to federal. Get me a single cell. No GP. Or the secrets go with me. The message was leaked. 2 weeks later, Dante was attacked in the prison yard. Shanked twice in the ribs. He survived, but never spoke again about the map, the other girls, or who might have helped him stay invisible. Some believe the silence was bought. Others think it was just fear. But either way, he was done talking. Epilogue. Cheryl's letter to the court. In 2024, Cheryl submitted a letter during a hearing on Dante's post-conviction appeal. Part of it read, "I used to be invisible. He made me into a secret. But I won't live hidden anymore, and I want the world to know. I survived him, but I remember every second." The judge denied Dante's appeal. He will remain in Trumbull Correctional until at least 2039, unless more victims are found. Unless the map reveals another basement. Unless someone else screams loud enough for the door to be opened. Some monsters hide in shadows. Others leave the front door unlocked. In Cleveland, one scream reopened a house of horrors and revealed the secrets the system almost buried. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe to Bodycam Chronicles to help uncover the truths hiding in plain sight. Every week we bring you real footage, real stories, and the disturbing patterns behind them. Don't let these voices fade. Hit subscribe and stay informed.